Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to episode 82 of Codebase Alpha. And so, this is a direct continuation of the last episode, which was it ended in a bit of confusion on my part. So, I wanted to start off this episode by kind of explaining how we got round that. I did that off stream. It certainly wasn't something I could have done on stream, as it involved some information that came to me in a tweet the following morning from someone called Lubber 2009. I'd like to thank Lubber 2009 for the tweet because it really helped me kind of sort out what was going wrong. So I'll just pop over into the code and we'll have a look at what we did to fix it up. Okay, so you'll remember that the issue we had is that I was trying to get the styling of the header and footer that we for our site to use the semantic classes. So we had UI avatar image, and that's supposed to produce a nice small image in a circle. And what it did, in fact, was just produce a ginormous image. It didn't style anything. We had the header styled as a UI inverted menu, and we had a container with a H1, which was a header item. We simply had the text codebasealpha.dev in it, and it just didn't apply any of the stylings. Weirdly enough, there was some styling applied to the footer, which wasn't part of our SAS module here. It was kind of floating at the bottom of the screen, but it did seem to take some kind of styling, which was really, really quite odd. And I didn't know how to solve that problem. We kind of floundered around towards the end of the stream, and eventually just gave up. So Lover 2009 tweeted me the next day and said, "Are you aware of a project called Fomantic? Not Semantic, but Fomantic. And Fomantic UI is actually the community fork of Semantic UI. And it seems that Semantic UI is on a development hiatus at the moment. I don't know if it'll restart or not, but the community has taken it forward. And the project the community has started is called Fomantic. And the tweet basically says, if you run into any problems, you might want to look at Fomantic. So I did. I also kind of did a bit more investigation about what was going on with our styling, why it wasn't applying. And it seemed that what was happening was it couldn't find our theme config that we kind of created last time. So if we just go over to the website I was using, which was this one, how to integrate Semantic UI, React, and GatsbyJS, and I kind of followed this. And this is kind of, it shows you that we when I'm doing these streams, I'm not exactly I'm not kind of following a script or I haven't practiced any of it. So what we did is found this site. I'd found this just before the stream started, and I took it at face value and I followed the instructions. So we implemented the Semantic UI less and the Gatsby plugin less, put those into the system. We created when we installed Semantic, we grabbed some of the code and popped it into some directories in the source directory, and followed all the instructions in here. And it turns out the instructions I was following, Copper Birdie, welcome to the stream. Good to see you. The instructions I was following, they're fine if you're using Webpack 3, but I'm on Webpack 4. We've got a brand new installation of Node. It's installed Webpack 4 point something, and it seems that these instructions, while they work fine if you're on Webpack 3, don't seem to work on Webpack 4. There's another problem we've got actually with the installation is the hot reload isn't working, and we'll address that in a later stream. But these instructions basically don't apply. So what I did is I undid all of the things that it says in here. So I removed the Gatsby Node.js file that we had. So with these two pieces of code in, the const path, require path, and the export here of this on create webpack config, which is one of the Gatsby lifecycle steps. Remove that. I removed the semantic folder from my source directory, deleted everything in there. I got rid of the less plugin because wasn't going to use less, and started again. And I ditched all that. So close that, and now I went over to the Fomantic site, which is here. Okay, so this is on version 2.8. Semantic UI is on version 2.4, so they've obviously taken it forward. There's some new things they've introduced, and they're actually working on a version 3 with the ultimate objective as to actually merging all that back into the root of the master branches of Semantic. So it's a very kind of worthy project, and I do support them in what they're trying to do. And so this guy Lubber 2009 pointed me in the direction of this. Says if you've got any problems, take a look at this. So I read the instructions here, and eventually came down to at the bottom here, setting up Semantic UI with React, and as Gatsby is basically a React kind of framework for static websites, I followed this. So all we need to do, and we followed the theme installation versions. So this is the bit we followed. So run this npm install, which is Semantic UI and Semantic UI React. Now we already had Semantic UI React installed, so I simply installed Semantic UI, got rid of Semantic UI _ less, which was the previous version we had installed, and then as you run this, it actually runs a gulp script, and it actually asks you loads of questions. All you do is answer the questions. It asks you where you want to put the files, and you answer those questions, and bang, it actually creates all the directories for you. The only thing that's not in here, this instruction here says that in your app component, you need to import the CSS file, which is here. Let me just make this a bit bigger if we can. So you can see it says import the CSS file in your app component. We haven't got an app component in Gatsby, so I had to do some digging around of what we do with that. So if we go over to our VS Code, you can see I've got a Fomantic directory inside which is a distribution directory, and this is what the gulp script builds for you. And inside there is a semantic CSS, and that's what we're after. Also over in source here we've got a theme.config, but it's all kind of internally linked. You haven't got to faff around by creating, dragging files out of the node modules directory and creating your own structure. It builds all this for you. So the only difference to the instructions that are on that website, that's Fomantic website, is that in Gatsby we haven't got an app component. What we need to do is create a Gatsby-browser.js file, and simply in there we put in the path to the semantic.css file, and there it is. So now if we run this up, let's delete that and go back to our header. If I run this now, so I go into here and I type Gatsby develop, it should compile up and start a development server. And there it goes. So it's going to build the bundles for us now. A little while on the first run. There we are, and we need to now navigate to localhost on port 8000, and I'll bring up an Chromium Edge, localhost 8000, and this time you can see we've got all of our styling actually applied. So we've got a header up here and a footer. We've got our avatar image, so which is the Codebase Alpha logo in our circular image, and we've got our container, which is nicely indented and contains all our main content, and then we've got the footer here with the links, and that's in a kind of an inverted color, so it's slightly different color to the main page. So that's all there was to it. So I was really pleased and really kind of indebted to Lubber for sending me that that tweet. So fantastic thing to have got, and great to get support from the community to kind of help you through that kind of problem. So we've got the basics of what we want working. We've got a kind of a framework, a layout for our site. So if you remember, we have a layout component, and this includes a header and a footer, and also space to put any child components that we want to generate. So this is layout that we use, and in our index.js we simply say we're going to have a layout. It's going to have a container, which is like a responsive area for our content, and this container is what comprises the child or children of the layout. As you can see, we bring in the container in from Semantic UI React plugin here, and we're bringing our layers in from our components directory, which is here. This is header. The only thing I did since then is actually I created a 404 page, which is exactly the same as the index page. It's called 404.js. What happens then if you do get a 404 not found response from HTTP, then it will actually display this page or this component. It only works for 404, so you can't create custom pages for any other HTTP response code other than 404. But just call it 404.js, and it's exactly the same as the previous the header. Sorry, the index.js, except I've got different text in there. And we've got that in there just so that we can kind of pull up any kind of routes that we create which don't contain any code. It is going to produce a nice, well, a reasonably formatted page. Not particularly, it's not the finished article by any stretch of the imagination. Okay, so as I say, we now have this as our main kind of page design. We've got a nice broad header and a nice little footer here, and that's going to float down the bottom there. That's going to stay at the top, and we have space for our content. I think the first thing I'd like to do is to work on this header a bit more and actually give it some menu buttons. So it's currently styled as a menu, but doesn't have any kind of menu options on it. We also want to make this area here to be a link that will take us home at any time. So it seems to be a modern kind of conceit that clicking on the logo or the header text here will take you to your home page. So we'll do that, and then what I want to do is work on some content in this main section here. If you remember, if we go to OneNote, I did a very rough sketch. So the idea is that we're going to have this kind of design. Here's the header with the avatar and the title. We're going to have some buttons that live over on the right hand side here. So a button to our blog page, an about page, a contact page. We're going to have some social buttons floating here. We're going to have some introductory text here. Then we're going to have a grid. Inside that grid, we're going to have kind of cards with all our GitHub projects in there. And so I'd like to try and do a little bit of work on this grid with the GitHub projects in them. And the idea here is that what we'll do is to link our system up to GitHub using GraphQL, and we'll pull in these projects and create this grid with all the cards inside the grid at build time. So you've got to remember, with Gatsby, we're talking about static websites. So it's not going to be dynamic in the sense that it's going to be server-side rendering, and we're going to actually render all the pages dynamically, but at build time, so they become static. So that's the idea. So this is what I'd like to try and work on. So let's see if we can get this this menu to have some buttons on it, and then get the buttons to kind of float over to the right-hand side. And then we'll have a look at this grid and see what we can do. Okay, let's go back to code. So here's our header component. We've already styled it as an inverted menu. So it's the inverted simply means it's the opposite color to the rest of the site. So it's a kind of grayish color. And we've got a container here. And then we've got a H1, which is a header item. So I think the best thing to do is to work on making this actually a link to start off with. So as part of Semantic UI, we haven't got a link kind of. We could use anchor tags here, but the recommended thing is that within with a Gatsby site, we should be using what's called a link component to link internally within our site. You can't use a link component to go off to a different website, but you should try and use the link component for internal linking. So let's try that for a start. So what we're going to want to do is do an import here. We're going to import the link component. We're going to get it in from the Gatsby package, like that. Okay, so now what we can do is we can wrap this span in a link. So we simply put a component in as we would normally. So link, like that. And we just move the closing tag after the span. We can print that. And then in the link, what we want to do is tell it where it goes to. So we use to, and then simply the internal route it's got to go to. And that's going to be simply slash, because it's going to go to the home page. So that should be enough to actually change the contents of the span, which is our avatar image and the text codebasealpha.dev, into a link. Let's save that. I think what we'll need to do is, because a hot reload doesn't seem to want to work. Oh, it has done it. It's hot reloaded this time. Oh, that's really good. Let's have a look. Yes, it's rebuilt. Okay, so you can see here it's extracted and rebuilt our environment. So we've actually got hot reload working. It must have been something to do with that webpack config lifecycle stage I had in the node Gatsby node file, which was interrupting with hot reload. So that's excellent. In fact, what we can do is just check that by looking at the console. That's here. It's still saying the hot reload has not been detected, but it does seem to have changed. So this is now a link, as you can see. So if I click that, I'm going to the home directory, even though the home page, even though of course it's there's nowhere else. So if I, say for example, if I go to slash nowhere. Oh, okay. So we haven't got a 40. Our 401 isn't working. Is hardly surprising, as I've not really worked on it. So let's. There's our 404 page, and now I can click on here, and it goes home. So we know that's working. Interesting. It says that the hot reload is not detected. It does seem to have done it. Well, we'll sort that out when we. That wasn't on the kind of list for today anyway. So what we need to do now is actually have some more links. So let's just put a bunch of links here after the header text, so after this span, which contains our header item. So let's just put a link here. Let's have, I don't know, let's have 3 links. We can put, I don't know, what do we have? We had blog, we had about, and we had contact. Whether we stick with those values is a moot point at the moment. It doesn't really matter. And we need to have some 2s here. So we're going to just go to the home page for each of these for now. So we haven't got any pages defined to go to. So let's just set those up. And 2 like that. So we've got some links now. So what does that look like? Let's have a look. Oops. Just seem to have done a rebuild. If we refresh, then we've got these links up here. The blog, about, contact. That doesn't look particularly clever, well, let's use the styling of our menu to try and make those into something a bit kind of nicer. So down here you can see this H1 is a header item. Now, if you remember, the reason why I kind of went with Semantic UI stroke Fomantic UI is I quite like the idea of having these just kind of plain English words which you kind of decorated your class with, or your HTML element rather. You kind of decorate it with almost English words, and it kind of made sense, and it almost kind of does what you say. Let's try that. So class name, and with Gatsby, remember it's not hyphenated, so class name is in camel case there. So we need to give it a class. So if we say item rather than a header item, we give each of these class name of item, an item in our menu, and we save. And we have a look now. So now we've got little buttons now floating nicely in the middle. It's styled them quite nicely and separated them out, and they're buttons, but they're kind of, the buttons are on the left hand side, so we want them pushed to the right. So once again, if we kind of think about what we want to have, we want to say it's a right item. So let's take the first one and say it's on the right. And we save that. Have a look, and now they're kind of floating over to the right. So they're within the kind of, our container is kind of making sure that our page lives nice and center within our kind of window here. So we've got some quite broad margins either side, but that's okay. So it also means that when we play around with the size of our window here, our size of our window, kind of it changes the layout. It's kind of responsive. Okay, so that's quite nice, and it has kind of a minimum. This is as small as it can get, because at this point those buttons on the menu are kind of collapsing against the header item, and it won't go any smaller than that. Maybe we'd like it to actually, okay, with a modern design, it would change into like a hamburger menu, but I don't think there's a way of doing hamburger menus within Semantic, not that I've seen anyway. I have to investigate that a bit more. But what we can do is make these menu items stackable, so they stack underneath as buttons. So when we try to go smaller, hopefully, if we make it stackable, then it should work. It should stack. So we'll change the header here, the semantic element header, decorate it with a class name of stackable menu now. So it's a UI inverted stackable menu. Let's see what that does. Okay, so now we've got, as we collapse down, now it's stacked them as we get to a certain point. It's a bit of a muchness. It's not got an awful lot smaller, but I don't know. I think that's quite nice. Brought them down here. What would be really great if those collapsed into a hamburger, and that hamburger lived up there. We'll have to investigate if we can do that, but I know that in Semantic it didn't have that feature. But they may have done it with Fomantic though. So I'm quite happy with that that header design. We got our menu. These are links. Currently going nowhere, of course. Just going to the home page again. But we'll create a blog page, an about page, and a contact page, or we may combine contact and about into the same button, and maybe have a different button. I don't know. And then we've got a link here to go home. Okay, so we're going to have some text up here. We're going to introduce text. We're going to have our social media buttons over here, and then we're going to have a grid, I think, here, which is going to contain our GitHub projects. So in order to do that, we're going to have some way of querying out to GitHub to find out what projects I've got on my GitHub. And we're going to do that using GraphQL. So let's kind of introduce GraphQL a bit. I've got a series of videos up on YouTube which go through kind of using GraphQL. It's been quite some time since I've used GraphQL, so I'm going to be on a bit of a kind of learning curve myself here again, kind of refresh my memory about GraphQL. One thing we can see though is that over in the in this part of the when we did a Gatsby develop, we got the semantic sorry the address of our website, localhost 8000 here. We also got this graphical in-browser ID to import site data and schema, which was localhost 8000 underscore GraphQL. Sorry, not graphical. QL. So let's grab that. Oops, I've just started up again. Yeah, we do a quick rebuild. So let's go over here, start a new tab, and we're going to go to /3_ GraphQL. So GraphQL is a way of querying an API. So there's you create a GraphQL endpoint, and you can query that endpoint and get data back about from the API in the form of JSON. The big advantage is there's only one endpoint. There aren't kind of an endpoint for every piece of JSON you want to bring back. And also you can tailor the JSON that you fetch back from the site according to a query, which is quite a graphical, it's a graph query language. I'll go into a lot of detail this in the GraphQL video series that's on YouTube. So go and look at that if you don't know anything about GraphQL. And in there we build a GraphQL endpoint in .NET and eventually link it into an Alexa skill. And there's about, I don't know, 9 or so episodes in that series which go through all the detail of how to build a GraphQL endpoint, and then how to build a client and how to query with GraphQL. But at the moment, what this has done, it's brought up an IDE, an in-browser IDE. So let's have a look at what we've got. We've got an Explorer here, which kind of shows what kind of data we can query. So it seems we've got all this stuff here. We've got site page, site plugin, all site plugin, all site page. So we can kind of have a look about what there is. And we can click on this. I don't know if we do that, and then we say, okay, so this is our query. A query is called my query. We're going to query all site pages, all edges, all nodes, and all components. And if we kind of click that, we get all of the components in the pages directory. So we've got the ones I created, which is the 404.js and the index.js. We've got the 404.js again, and we seem to have over in this edges part here, we've also got development 404 page, which is the one we saw, which is interesting. So the cache here has been built by the Gatsby develop command. You can see it's kind of got data, and then what we've asked for is repeated in here. So we've got a nice an array of nodes in this edges value here. We could also, I don't know, click children. And we need to put a comma there, I think. And do that, and then we get any child components or child pages. Okay, so if we just query components instead, node component, and we're getting that. What else can we look at? Plugins, all site plugins, edges, nodes, plugin options. I don't know. We can just have a play around and see what this gives us. And there we go. We get more data coming back. It's all null, but we got stuff coming back. So we can use this now. Try and set up a link to GitHub, and then we should be able to explore with GitHub, find out what we can actually query back, and then we can craft our query in this IDE, which is really, really useful because we can explore the data that's available to us within the GraphQL endpoint on GitHub. Now, what I've done before the stream, I created a personal access token for GitHub, and I stored it in an environment file within this project. I'm not going to show you it. Obviously, it's sensitive data. We haven't tried it, so I've no idea if it's going to work or not. But let's give it a go. So what do we need to do? We need to stop our development environment here. There's an update to Gatsby here. Look, we might run that towards the end of. I'm not going to run it now. We might run that towards the end of the stream to see if it upgrades. Okay. Okay. So what we're going to need to do is go and find out what plugin we can use so that we can use GraphQL to reach any GraphQL API endpoint that's out on the internet. In specifically terms, we want to get the GitHub one. Let's go and have a look on the Gatsby documentation site. It's GatsbyJS.org, and we're going to want to look at plugins. So I'll make this a bit bigger so you can see it. So this is the Gatsby plugin library, and we want GraphQL. I want to search for GraphQL and see what we get. Okay, so there's plenty of stuff here for GraphQL. Angolia, not sure what that is. Ogen, Semantic. So this looks interesting. So what's this? This is a plugin. This is a universal version of the official Gatsby source GraphQL. So I think that's the one we want. That's the one we want. Gatsby source. We don't want the universal version. We want the actual version, the official Gatsby version of that. So there it is, Gatsby source GraphQL. So it's a Gatsby plugin which has a third-party GraphQL API to our Gatsby built-in GraphQL. So let's have a look. We've got to install it with this npm command. So let's do that bit first. Copy that. Go over here, and we're going to say the ---- save here is going to update our package.json file so that this becomes part of our project. Okay, let's run that and get that plugin installed. So this is the kind of one part of Node development which I'm still getting used to. Is that all these npm installs you have to do. So we've got some optional dependency warnings, but that's okay. Like this is macOS Node module, FS events. We don't need that. So we've got that now installed in our Node modules directory. Now we're going to need to actually configure our project to use this plugin. So it says if the remote GraphQL API needs authentication, you should pass an environment variable into the build process so that your credentials aren't committed to source control. So I've got that. I've got a .env.development directory, and that's got a Gatsby. Sorry, it's got a GitHub_token environment variable in there, and we're going to be able to access that through the process.env variable. So now we need to configure our plugin, and we want the GitHub API will be authenticated. We want to pass authentication information to it. So this looks like what we want. Early Dev, welcome to the stream. Good to see you. GCC got annoyed when I was tinkering with Node and ended up with a Node modules folder nested so deep under multiple dependencies he couldn't delete it. Absolutely. So they get enormous. So 50,000 files is usual in there. Many megabytes of modules deeply nested, and absolutely a nightmare to delete. I totally with you. I'm not. I gotta say I'm not 100% sold on Node development. But it's interesting for me to challenge myself, as I'm not a front-end developer, as you'll all know. So it's an interesting challenge, and it's something new to kind of get my head around. So I'm kind of rising to the challenge. But okay, so this looks kind of what we want, but we want authorization as well. Have a look. Okay, well we'll just we'll go with this basic config to start with. So this is it here. We'll just grab this. I don't think this get authorization token is what we want though, or this async stuff. It's going to be this part here that we want. I think we want to create an authorization header with a bearer and stick our bearer token into that. So let's grab this piece of code here. And this is going to live in our module exports plugin array. Okay, let's go and have a look at what we do with that. So let's just make sure I'm following my outline of what we need to do in the stream. Yeah, looks okay. Right. So we've got a Gatsby.config here, and it's got a plugins array. And this is where we've kind of brought in our Sass plugin. We're not using Sass to any kind of extent at the moment, but we do have a Sass footer styling module here. Okay, so we need a comma, then we need to pop in our next plugin, which is our Gatsby source GraphQL. So it's going to be GitHub. Field name is going to be GitHub. This is the correct address for our GraphQL endpoints. I think I'm going to remove this to start with. Oops, because we removed too many things. There we go. And GitHub token is what I actually called my environment variable. So that should get that environment variable at that point. So let's save that, and let's do Gatsby.develop and see what happens when we go to our graphical IDE. Oh, we had an error. Which is an unauthorized error, isn't it? So, okay. Okay. So, let's put that code, the exact code that we had here, back in. Let's try that. Okay. So we don't want that. And we're going to probably have to go and look at some sample code where other people have done this if this doesn't work. This is always my fallback. Other people will have worked on this kind of code before, and we should just go and look. If we can't get it working ourselves, we'll go and have a look at how they did it. Let's run a develop on it, see what happens. It's errored again. Yeah, so I'm not convinced by that get authorization token thing there. Cancel that again. Give it one more go. So we get rid of this here. So HTTPS there. We're putting a bearer token. It's going to be this, isn't it? So when we've copied it, it's given these weird. Was that a backtick? Yeah, it's a backtick, isn't it? So that should be correct. Make sure. So it is a backtick. So it looks like that looks okay. And give it a go. So that's errored again. So I think what we're going to do is going to go and look at some code that already exists and see what that does. So let's go to tutorials, and there should be some starter sites we can go and have a look at the code for. So let's put starter here. So what we want is a starter library. Docs, tutorial. Start. What's on the quick start? Not what we want. Intermediate. Putting data for a blog. That's all the plugins. So we're going to be interested in some of these pages at some point, because this is all about creating pages from data. Let's be themes. Where is recipes? Starters. Starter library, that's what we want. Okay, let's have a look at these. This is a portfolio site. So, I mean, if you didn't want to do all the kind of stuff I'm doing, you could just go and get a starter site here and run with it, but not really much point in doing that for a stream. We want to learn a bit about the Gatsby technology. Here a blog. We're going to do a blog in another stream. Gatsby portfolio dev, portfolio for developers. Let's have a look at that. What's this do? PWA, okay, well that's interesting. Does it use Gatsby source GraphQL? It does. So let's go and have a look what they've done with it. Fetches your GitHub pinned projects. Okay, so that sounds interesting. So let's go to the repo where that is stored. That's here. What we want to do is have a look in the Gatsby config for how they've configured their plugin. Here. That looks pretty much what I've got, doesn't it? HTTPS. Let's just, oops. Let's grab what they've got so that we don't. Let's get raw. I'm pretty sure that's exactly what we've got. And the problem is that this kind of hangs on me having created the bearer token correctly, doesn't it? So that is kind of where it all falls down, really. I may have created that incorrectly, in which case I'll have to recreate it, and I can't do that on stream. Okay, so let's go over here and let's paste that code in there. It looks pretty similar to what I did. So GitHub token. Okay. What I'm going to do is just take this off screen for a second and have a look at my GitHub token. So there it is. Okay. So it's definitely called GitHub underscore token, and it's got a value in there. Save that away. And we'll give it one more go. There it again. It's saying that Gatsby threw an error while running this source node's life cycle. And I bet if we go to our graphical IDE here and refresh this, we're not going to get anything for GraphQL for GitHub, and that's a bit of a shame. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to GitHub, and I'm going to have a look at my personal access token I created. So I'm just going to be off screen for a second. So if I bring this down, so I'll go to my GitHub and have a look at the personal access tokens that I've created. So I'm going to the settings area, and in there is where do I go? I've forgotten. Developer settings, is it? Personal, yeah, developer settings, then personal access tokens. So just to show you, this is where I am. So I've gone to my GitHub. I've gone to developer settings and developer settings, and there's an option there called personal access token. So we're going to have a look at that. I'm going to generate a new one, I think. I'm just going to give it a name. So I've just clicked on the option to generate a new personal access token. I've given it a name, and for the scope, I'm going to set repo as the scope. So it should be able to look at my repositories. And we'll generate the token. I'm going to copy that token. Then I'm going to drag this across here, and I'm going to update my my environment variable to be that new token. Save that. Close that down. That was not what I wanted to do. So I'm going to have to delete that token and create a new one. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to drag that particular window across. Generate a new token. So we don't want to dox ourselves on this. New repo. Generate the token. Copy it. I'm going to close that down. Over here. Okay, in my environment env.develop, we're going to paste that token in. Save. Close that. And then we're going to shut down that personal access token window. And then I should be able to drag this back over here. Is that? We'll give it one more go. Is it going to like it? No. So let's go and have a look on the internet and see why it doesn't like what I'm doing. Gatsby source GraphQL connect to GitHub API. So the graphs in data example. GitHub is fetched. So Gatsby source GraphQL. So we've got the right plugin, build time. Yep. Load on GitHub. So there's a Gatsby config. That's no different from what we've got. What ours is refusing to authenticate. So let's change our query to Gatsby connect to GitHub authorization. GitHub API. So that we can go to here. So authenticating with GraphQL. This is the documentation for the GraphQL API at GitHub. It says you need an OAuth token within the right scopes. Follow the steps in creating a personal access token for the command line. Create a token. The scopes you require depend on the data you want to request. For example, set the user scope to user data. Go to this. So, create a personal access token for the command line. So, when you're using two-factor authentication to access the protected content, in an organization. Create a token. So settings developer settings personal access tokens. So this is what I did. So I granted it repo scope. I generated a token. Copied my token. If you're not prompted for username and password, it should maybe cached. So I created a personal access token according to that, didn't I? So what is the issue? Where were we? Yeah, wasn't it? That's it. Your endpoints. So it says authenticate with GraphQL. We need to. I need to do all of those scopes. Okay, well let's do it again then. So we're going to need to get all those scopes. So I'll just start another one. We'll move that once again over here. And so I'm going to go to settings, developer settings. What's this saying that we need? Has it gone? I was just looking at it. Where's it gone? Authorization. Where's authorization gone? Oh, very strange. Calls. Oh, here it is. So make that bit bigger so you can read it. Because authenticate with GraphQL. To communicate with GraphQL server, you need an OAuth token with the right scopes. So maybe we didn't have the right scope. So it needs all these scopes. So I'll create another person access token. I'm going to delete the ones I previously created. That. I'm going to generate a new token. Okay, and it's going to have, so repo scope. So that's got repo status, repo deployment, repo, public repo, and repo invite. Don't need repo invite apparently, but we'll leave it on. And we need user. We need public repo. Can't see a public repo other than part of the repo. Okay, well those scopes don't seem to be the user. So repo hook, admin repo hook, read repo hook it needs. Read repo hook. Okay. Repo deployment, it wants that. Got that. Repo status, yeah. Read org. Where is read org? Read org. Read public key. Okay. And read GPG key. I don't seem to have. Oh, there it is. Read that. GPG key. So user. Yeah. Then we've got repo. Public repo. Yep. Repo deployment. Yep. Repo status. Yep. Read repo hook. I've got that. Read org. Yes. Read public key. Read public key. Yep. And read GPG key. So let's create that token. Okay, so I've got that. Copy that. I'm now going to do the same, I'm afraid. Just drag this across over here. I'm going to open my environment file. Paste that new token in. Save it. Close that down. I can then bring this back across for you. And I can close that down. So let's give it another go. Maybe this will work. No. Through an error while running the source node's lifecycle. Response not successful. Receive status code 401. Well, this is kind of scupping my streaming in, isn't it? Let's make sure we're going to the right endpoint. Pretty sure we are. So there's the endpoint. So if I was to now to try and figure out what's going on, I would get something like Postman and have a look at, create the bearer thing manually. But yes, we're making the same face. Fuel stable. Yes. Welcome to the stream. Yeah, I'm not having an awful lot of luck with this project, am I? So it's something that should be fairly straightforward. Seems not to want to work. And the problem is, in order to figure out what's going on, it's a bit tricky without revealing secrets. So API github.com/GraphQL looks like it's the correct endpoint. GraphQL, go query launcher APIs. Oh, that's the GraphQL thing. We want the GitHub API. So API. This is the REST API, not the GraphQL API. Yeah. So this is version 4. So let's go and have a look at the no, that's not what we want. That's wrong around. Authorization bearer token. So it looks like we've got everything set up correctly. It's not authenticated. Is what we're looking at already. So authenticating with GraphQL. Create a personal access token with the command line. I've done that. If you can't match behavior with GraphQL Explorer, test the following scopes. We've got our GraphQL. Yeah, without being able to run something manually, I'm going to be limited in what I can do. Very unsatisfactory. I feel like crying, to be honest with you. So why does it think it can't? Why is it 401ing on me? So let's search any help on that. So Gatsby. Oops. GraphQL 1. Troubleshooting common errors. Problem with the cache. Problems with GraphQL. We want errors with GraphQL. No, it's not unknown things. We simply can't authenticate. With GitHub. Just say no context variables. We haven't got that far. GraphQL using a prop, or we haven't even got that far. We can't connect. 401 after a freshly generated access token. Okay, so this is a relatively recent. It's 2019. The thing is, I've done so many creations of personal access tokens that doesn't seem reasonable that they're just randomly failing. This is no help at all on that one. Let's just double check. So that's a starter. We wanted the plugins. It was Gatsby source GraphQL. So we've done this one, Gatsby source GraphQL. Let's just make sure that is living in our package.json. Gatsby source GraphQL, and it's 2133. Okay. So the only thing I think it's not picking up our environment variable. But why wouldn't it do that? GitHub token is what I called it. And this is pretty much the same as what we want. Advanced config uses a custom fetch function. GitHub fetch compatible API. We haven't got Apollo, whatever that is, so custom fetch function. I don't think we really want to use a custom fetch function, do we? Can we give it a go? Try it. Where's the? We haven't got a the GitHub token in there. So it would seem that it's not picking this up, wouldn't it? Why wouldn't it? That looks pretty much like I'd expect it to look. Those backticks, I suppose, must be correct. Putting that in as a it's evaluating what's between the backticks. There's definitely backticks there. I'm pretty trustworthy that that's correct. God, I hate this kind of thing. I can't, I can't debug this on stream. So annoying. It'll take me minutes to debug it off stream. What's the best thing to do? I just got nothing done, have I? Again, nothing done on stream. Aggravating. I think it looks to be correct. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to see if we're actually pulling that token out. I'm not going to be able to show you on screen, I don't think. So how can we, let's have a look at environment variables in Gatsby. Environment variables. Okay. So if you're in Gatsby Develop, you'll be in the development environment. That's correct. So we've got a .env.develop folder, file rather. So we've got, and this is the global variable process.env. You're in Gatsby build or Gatsby server, you'll be in production environment. Once you define other environments, you can do more work. So we've got development. Just make sure we've got that spelt correctly. What I wanted to do, this one here, this is .env.development. Definitely a directory there. Let's say a file there. Defining environment variables. Client-side JavaScript. For project envars, if you want to access the client-side browser JavaScript, you can define an environment config file .env.development and/or .env.production in your root folder. Depending on your active environment, the correct one will be found in values embedded as environment variables in the browser JavaScript. In addition to these, you can also have OSN vars. OSN vars are prefixed Gatsby underscore, become available in okay. Server-side Node.js, we're not doing any of that. So you shouldn't commit. Yeah, okay. We don't commit them to our. I wonder if we should put Gatsby underscore in front of it. Is that going to make any difference? As reserved words, node env and public dir. Should just read it, shouldn't it? Let's try changing the name and we'll give that a go. I'll try anything at this stage. I'll just move this across. So we're going to call it Gatsby underscore GitHub underscore token. Okay, in here we'll change this to Gatsby underscore GitHub underscore token. This will make absolutely no difference, I'm convinced. Try anything once. No, 401 again. Gatsby source GraphQL through an error. So I'm gonna have to try and debug this, aren't I? So let's I think I've got Postman. I have got Postman. So I'm gonna have to do this kind of off to one side. So I'll bring up Postman. We're gonna try a GET request. GitHub GraphQL. What can't I create it? So this was playing, looks like I was playing around with Twitch API here. Do a new one. Best. I want to playing work. Is everything going to stop working for me today? Select a folder or a collection or folder. Yes. There we are, saved it. So I'm going to have to take this off screen, for which I do apologise, and then we're going to look at the forming calls here. So what we need to do, we need to put in a URL, and the request URL is going to be this one here. So https API github.com/GraphQL, and then we're going to want to have an authorization bearer token like that, and I'm going to now have to go across and take this over here, I'm afraid, and I'm going to get my my bearer token, my personal access token, like that, and I'm going to copy it into Postman, and I'm going to send that through. And I've got data back, so my token is working. If I show you here, I don't believe there's anything I need to read about. Here, you can see I've got the schema come back, Postman. So I'm confident now that my GitHub token is actually working. Okay, so that's good. Okay, so we'll minimize that. So my token's good. So I would suspect my token's not getting pulled in to here. So why would it not? Will not immediately be available on node scripts. Oh, this is node scripts, so it's server-side node. Okay. Those environments will be available when node is running, so you can add environment in a normal way. So is it saying we need to put this into our, I think we need to put this into our Gatsby.config. Let's try that. So let's copy that. Where's my, bring this across. And Gatsby.config, that require in there. Let's see if that makes the remotest bit of difference. That has made a big difference, hasn't it? Okay, I actually solved that on stream, so I'm glad that we managed to test the token out, because that was the doubt: was the token working? And it is working. Okay, so we've got that running. So let's go over here to our graphical, and we have GitHub. We have GitHub. Oh, look at all this. Okay, so what have we got? So we can query GitHub, licenses, nodes, organization. We want our repos, don't we? Repository owner, resource. Nodes. We've got loads and loads of stuff. I'm not sure what we need to query. Okay, well, we've made a step forward. Repository, there we go. Repository name and owner. Let's query that and see what we get back. So it could not resolve a user name empty. So this is asking for a repository owner. So these are variables asking for. So maybe if we put that in there. So it's not a repo, so repository. No, I think it likes that. Okay, so let's not do that bit. So these ones with the stars, these are mandatory. So it wants, we'll call it base alpha. If we can't get any on with this, what we'll have to do is to go and look at some examples. Oops. Ah, there we go. So we've got a repository. I want all repositories. I want a list of repositories. There's so much data. Interesting, there's a rate limit on this, but hopefully we shouldn't get anywhere near that. And when we actually get this working with our application, then the rate limits won't matter, because only when we build will it do this actual this query. So let's have a look. Name. So if we just kind of build up a query, it's Codebase Alpha repository, but we want a list of repositories. So I wonder how we do that. We did come across that that earlier we came across that earlier starter site, and that must have a query in it. So what should we do? There must be a repositories under the GitHub. Let's clear this way and let's have a look, see if we can find viewer. What's that? Repositories. There we go. And what happens if we do that? We suppose a first or last value to paginate the repository's connection. I forget a lot about. Well, let's get the first. I think what we can do is say something like the first. I don't know what the first 10. And we get 10. So we got we got node IDs. Okay, so what can we get in the node area here? Where are we exactly? We're under repositories, edges, node. We can get a description, name. We don't need the ID and the name. Let's run that. Okay. Guitar trainer. That's it. Yeah. Okay. Atlantis. Stargazers. Okay. Well, I think what we can do is we can get it to order by. Can I remember how to do the order? Field stargazers direction. I get is direction. And we want descending direction. Descending. So hopefully that we cut out some of these ones that we don't really want to see. Have a look what that does. So okay, so we got the starred ones. So we got the Z80 emulator project, synthesizer, shaders, chatbots, website, and plugins. Okay, so that's good. Dev streams. Okay, so we're getting somewhere. So what else can we bring in? URL, description, stargazers. What's in there? That must be how many stars there are. Okay. That might be of interest. So we want is fork. We don't want to necessarily display forks. So yeah, so is fork is interesting. So we don't want anything which is disabled or forked or is private, do we? Okay, so let's go and have a look at how we actually do those kind of queries. Introduction to GraphQL. So we want to have so this is saying ID 1000, it brings back 1000. So maybe we can do that. So if we say repositories is the first, there's the order by, and we say something like, I don't know, is fork false? Does that actually work? Does seem to have done. So let's get first 50. Okay, so that's the first 50. I've only got about 38 repos. So we've got AlphaBot, got the synth. So if it brings back something like dev streams, that's a fork, because I forked dev chatter's site. So it's not bringing it back so far. So I think we're going to be okay. Here's the learning F# ones. There's calculator thing there. So we can control which ones show by starring them or not, can't we? So we could also say here is perhaps not. Is locked his applications. It's interesting. There's not an awful lot of stuff we can do there, is there? I wanted to try and get it so that the Stargazer total count was greater than 0, because that way we can use the star feature within GitHub to control which ones get shown. Because I don't know, some of these I'm not interested in being shown on the site. For example, the Cricket app is just me playing with the Telerik controls. Maybe the learning F# stuff and the calculator we don't need to actually show, unless somebody else is interested and they star it, and that's fine then. What do I start? Order by field stargazers. Direction. So what other values do we have available? Users. Not obviously available to me, is it? So ordering by stargazers. Is fork is false. So fork count. Got fork count. What else could we look at? I want really order by. This is really useful, this Explorer site, because it's got all of these nice features here, isn't it? What else have we got? So repository affiliations, before, first is locked, last, direction, order by, privacy public. Okay. Probably useful to have. That added that in? It has. Let's run that again, make sure we get that. I really want it so that it's I really would like to do the fork count, so that maybe other people have forked repo. That. What else have we got? Signable users, collaborators. Let's have collaborators. Perhaps not. It just has queried. So much data available. Loads of. Well, we got some basic information. What we got? We got the description, the name, the description, the URL, the number of stars, and the number of people who've done a fork on it. And what else can we get about our repo? There's like a bit more information really. Deployments, usage, forks, links, page URL, labeled, it's locked, it's template, open issues, do that I suppose, label, all labels might be interesting. Name, what is that going to give us? Is it going to give us the technology labels? We have the first 10 labels. Oh no, those are labels as in the, we don't want labels. We don't want labels. Those are kind of for issues, issue labels. There's the kind of tags. Are there any tags? We haven't got any project. We haven't got any projects from milestones and all that. What's that going to give us? Okay, well that's fair enough. We've got the languages. And we've got enough information there, haven't we, really? That seems reasonable to me. And we can change the name of the query, I believe. Okay, so let's try and use this information here. So we've got a description, a name, a URL, the number of stars, number of forks, and what languages are involved. Yeah, let's try and use that as the basis of what we want to do next. So let's go over here. Okay, what's the best thing to do? Let's create a new component. Call it projects. Okay, so we want to bring in the usual React module. In fact, we'll bring in those 3 imports. Okay, so we want to import GraphQL as well. So QL. Gatsby. So we're going to use we're going to create our constant. So just as before, for the header, we're going to create a constant called projects, and then we're going to have an assignment, anything like this. Let's give it a go. So const projects with a capital P, and we have the fat arrow, and then we have curly and braces, and brackets, like that. Okay. So the first thing we want to do is to so we've got this GraphQL query that we've got here. So we want to kind of wrap this up a bit. So GitHub viewer repositories. So we want these edges here. Those contain, the edge contains all the nodes. So as you can see here, we've got, these are all kind of nested attributes till we get to edges, and edges is an array, and that contains all of the nodes. So each node is a repository that we want to work with. So we need to kind of work with that, don't we? So I'm thinking we should use a hook to make this a bit more kind of easy to understand. So what's the best way of doing that? Okay. First thing we want to do is to export default projects like that, so that it does get exported. So so let's create a constant. This is why my JavaScript is going to be a bit kind of hit or miss. So let's create an object. Our object is going to be GitHub, which is the first level of our query. So our query is it starts off with GitHub, as you can see, then viewer, then repositories, then edges. Let's wrap all that into an object. So GitHub, that is an object which contains viewer, which is an object which contains repositories, I think it was. So look, it contains repositories which contains a property called edges. Grab the name of it. So repositories, and that contains edges. So that's what we're going to be bringing back. So for that, I think we're going to have to wrap this up. Well, we don't know. I'm not sure yet. I'm not sure. Let's leave it like that for a second. Let's wrap it in curly braces. No, I think it should be round braces. But we'll experiment. I'm just slightly concerned that this const is so we need to so we need a static query. So within Gatsby there's these static queries, but we can use a static query React hook here, I think, if I remember correctly. Let's have a look at that. Gatsby static query hook. Querying data. So we've imported GraphQL. Okay. Here's the static data. This is kind of what we want to do, isn't it? But we can use this static query hook instead. So this is new technology that's within Gatsby version 2 and above. It's React and React DOM. We've got that. We need to use static query. Import that. So let's grab hold of that. That's that. What else does it say? So here it's setting up the use static query. Okay. So we want something along those lines, don't we? So I think we want to grab that bit of code. So that equals that. And we need to backtick and to close off curly braces. Now it's interesting that in that example they're using curly braces here and doing a return. So let's do the same, curly braces and then a return. Okay. We'll change that to a closed curly brace, that to an open curly brace, and then they're saying return and then returning the JSX. Okay. Then we say return. The JSX lives inside there. And we need to put some JSX inside there. That's why we got a curly brace there. So now we need to actually set up our GraphQL query inside the backticks. So let's go and grab our GitHub query. So the GitHub query was here, and so it is all of this there. And this is the advantage of using this IDE to actually model your query, and we actually see the results are going to come back, so we can try and use those to help us interpret what comes back. So let's pop our query into there. Okay, so that's our query. And now we need to build some JSX to return. Okay, so we're already importing container, so let's wrap everything in a div. And I think I like to wrap everything in a div first, and then have a container. Like that. And then we want a grid of some kind, don't we? Let's put a so projects on GitHub, and some kind of a title. And then we want a grid. Now there's a grid type which we can get from Semantic. Let's have a look. So what is the collections grid? Let's make this bigger. So grid is a structure of long history used to align negative space in designs. This grid to make content flow. So we have this is 16 columns. Okay, we've got rows and okay, we'll just have a look and see what happens. Let's try put a grid in and we'll play with it later. Get it looking decent. So we need to import grid. So inside the container we're going to have the grid. You know, I'm so glad we've solved that connectivity problem. Would have been very, very annoying to be stuck again into this stream. We might still get stuck, but okay. So now what we need to do is we need to pull out the nodes, don't we? So each of the we're going to create a card inside here, and each of those is going to contain data from a node from our query. So our nodes here, okay, contain these attributes: description, name, URL, total number of stars, etc. So what we want to do here, we want to do a bit of fat arrowing. So so our edges, we've got edges coming through here. Edges is an array, so we can use our map function. And what we can't do within this Gatsby JSX stuff, we can't use loops. So we're going to use kind of a functional equivalence, which is a map. And what map's going to do is going to for each node, it's going to run a function against each node, and that function is going to create a card for each node and populate the grid with the card. So let's have a look. So what do we want to do? We want to say, take the node, and then we are going to we're going to fat arrow that, aren't we? Fat arrow that. Okay, so then we want to a card. We need to bring the card in now. So card is another type which we can pull in from Fomantic. Go and have a look at card. Here. Single card, so it's going to obviously won't look exactly like that, but so we've got some. We're just going to be going to group the cards together, don't we? So they're saying they're going to put them inside a div cards, UI cards. So let's give it a go. Let's just see what happens when we try this. So we've got things like header, meta, description, extra content. Okay, so let's just put something inside a card, shall we? So card, and then we're going to have a div, and it's going to have class name equals UI, and what was it? Oh, we're going to have a content. Content is content. Okay, and inside that we were going to have a header. So div, the class name equals the header, and inside there we're going to have no dot. What's going to be in there? Node dot name. Dot name. Oops. What happens if we go and look at that? How to compile. Unexpected name GitHub. I think I've missed a curly brace out. I think there should be a curly brace there. Like that. Yeah. Nope. Right, that's not. Got excited then. Okay, so we're not seeing anything. But it didn't. It's still compiled. Okay. Can we put a class name on that? But it was suggesting cards, wasn't it? Still not any content. Okay. So let's do this a bit closer. We're doing a map. Mapping the edges of our query. Make this a bit better read. Made any difference? Good. Okay. Edges node. There's our node. Node.name. We definitely got name. One of the node properties. So let's, for the moment, I'm going to copy that. Let's put out a div, and inside that div it's going to be node.name. Oops, I keep getting excited when I see that. So it's still not getting any output. I wonder why that is. Okay. Oh, the reason why we haven't included it, idiot. Okay, so now what we need to do is go to our page indexing, and we need to have projects here, and we need to import our projects component. Projects and projects there. So will we get anything this time? Okay, so element type is invalid as a string. Undefined. Forgot to export your component. Element type is invalid, but it's a string, built-in components, or a class function for composite components, but got undefined. So it looks like what it's getting is this is undefined. Got a div with some text in, haven't we? Interesting. I think what we'll do is get rid of that for a start, make sure that's not causing any problems. Yeah, so they've got the same thing. So it's saying well, that's not really helpful. Get the render method for projects. So we haven't got a render method because we don't need necessarily a render method. Because we're returning this piece of. So I know what we'll do. What we'll do is we will remove this piece of code and just return that. Let's make sure we can see something. So no, got to export your component from the file it's defined in. Okay. Export default projects. Let's try exporting the constant, shall we? Projects. Element type is invalid. Expected a string. Check render method index page now. Okay. So index page. Import projects from components projects. Okay. So definitely in there. It's called project. Get rid of the method for index page. Got to export your component from the file it's defined in. You might have mixed up a default and named import. Export default. No. Okay, well let's go back to that example that we had before. The example was, where was the example? Querying here. So, const non-page component equals that. Okay. So that's slightly different than I've written it, isn't it? Okay. They're saying const data is the useStatic query, and then they define the entire query in there. Well, let's give that a go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move that across so I can see it over here. Let's give it a go. So I think my JavaScript is probably a bit wrong here. So they're saying, oops, what's that started up for? Go away. They're saying here they define a constant like that, and then constant data is GraphQL, and then they're saying GraphQL query GitHub query. Okay. And then they're simply getting data down here. So we got data dot GraphQL data. GraphQL. Dot. It's not that. In the code that I'm looking at, they've got data is the GraphQL, the query non-page query, which is what I've just done. Site. This is obviously doing a local query. And then they're referring to data.site. Dot GitHub. Viewer. Dot repositories. Dot edges. So that should be a that should be an array, shouldn't it? I don't believe we can view that by any stretch of the imagination. We just do a dot map on that then. Because that is an array, and the map we want the node, and against that node we want to call a function. And that function for each of those nodes, we want to, I don't know, h2, and then we're going to say node dot name. It seems to make sense to me, but obviously it's not looking correct. So this is going to play in again about invalid element type, expected a string. So I'm not quite getting what it's trying to tell me. Gatsby's the future. So CMC boy, thank you for joining the stream. Maybe you can give me a clue here about what I'm doing wrong. So I'm very new to Gatsby. I'm pretty new to all front-end development. So I'm struggling a bit here, trying to. This should be a, as far as I can tell, this should be the array of edges. GitHub data. GitHub data is use static query. This is the query. With my kind of where clause there. So I want to run map. Let's get rid of grid. Maybe that's messing things up a bit. You can always bring all this back. Don't quite understand the error message. Card is under 500 years. Project is assigned a value but never used. Okay, projects is assigned a value but never used. So that's the problem. So export default imported as projects was not found. Okay, so I think we've just got. I need to export default projects. If so it's only those things complained about now, and on here. Ah, there we go. We've got it. Projects on GitHub. There's. So me footer's not quite working, but we've got all of our projects. Okay, so that's a step forward. Okay, so that's what else we can do now. So we wanted a grid. We wanted a container. And within that container, we want a grid. And we'll figure out what we do with a grid in a bit. And within there, we want. Okay, so that's not quite what we want. So within the grid, that's when we want. That is when we want to do this mapping. So it's actually container here. That. Okay. And get rid of that one. And then within that we want a grid. Like that. Okay. And inside of our map function, we want to put out. I wanted to put a card, didn't I? Like that. And inside that card, we wanted a div, the class name of header, and inside there we wanted node.name. Oh, will that do anything that we want? So this is where the hot date was not successful, so I think we need to just do a refresh. Okay, this is where it says we've gone wrong. We're not putting a string. I think that is a string. Okay, it's interesting, isn't it? So if I get rid of the card, what's it going to do then? Okay. Not happy, is it? if I get rid of these, I'll probably wrap that in a container. I'm pretty sure I can do that. So now I do get my list. Interesting that my footer's not working correctly, but then I was saying, well, yeah, I was trying to kind of wrap this text here I'm producing. I was trying to wrap that into a card. Oh, I know what it is. This is one of these things. In Gatsby, you've got to produce unless you use Gatsby fragments, you've got to produce a single HTML kind of output. So I think I need to wrap that in a div like that, and then I think I can put a card there. Does that sound right, CMC boy? So is that what you think it might be? No. Oh, that was a hot update, not successful. Now it's saying it's string again. One of 4 errors, one of 9 errors on the page. 14 errors on the page. I think it's for every single one of those. For each of these, it's producing an error. So I'm trying to wrap in a card, and it doesn't like it. Why wouldn't it like that? I'm importing card up there. That's interesting. So let's go and have a look at what card is all about. Semantic. So here's card. They're saying they've got a class UI cards, and then they're okay. So let's try that then. Rather than a grid, get a div with a type of UI cards and a div of class card. Let's go to the not using the React components. Let's say here this is going to be a div. Class name equals UI card. Get rid of that. And then we'll wrap that in another div. The class name content. Okay. Then a header. And then we wrap the whole lot in a div. The class name of UI cards. So this will rule out any problems with the React component that we're using. Oh, there we go. There we go. Okay, so we're getting somewhere. So I think not using the React components is the way to go here. We'll use just the semantic or the Fomantic UI stuff. So let's get rid of grid and card. And we can probably get rid of link as well. We don't need link. So what else can we do with cards? Have a look. So we've got we can have a picture, which will probably have a picture. That's a right floated mini UI image. Fair enough. Well, that sounds quite a good idea. We'll probably have something like that. Then we've got a header. We've got meta. Then we've got description. So let's have description. So under the header, we're going to have a div, class name, description. And inside there, we're going to have no.description. And then we got it. Now that's looking quite nice, apart from my footer, which is all to pot. So why is the footer all to pot? Let's see if we can just sort that out briefly. So my layout has got the footer, just tidy that up like that. My footer is defined as being, it's got a footer there. So let's try not importing the styles from the CSS module, the SAS module there. No, it's still in the middle there. It's a bit annoying. What I'm going to do for the moment, I'm going to not display the footer. So in my layout, I'm going to miss the footer off, just so we don't get that stood in the way. Now we go. Oh, it's still there. Why is it still there? That's a bit weird. I've just removed it. Did it not compile? Styles is not defined. Okay. So in footer, styles is not defined. So it's that there. So I'd probably get rid of that for now. I'll save. There we go, it's gone. And let's try just restoring the footer and see if that fixes the issue without using that CSS or SAS. Yeah, that's better. So it's sitting at the bottom there. We need to put some spacing in there because it's up against the right up against there. So we need to have well, put a non-breaking space at the bottom there at the moment. So let's just do that quickly. So after the footer, we'll put a line, a blank line, just to stop that happening. There we go, that's better. And then we got our projects on GitHub. So look, it's still pretty crude, but we've got some data that's being pulled in from GitHub at least. Okay, we've got distance field in there. Pure Snowball, I imported your distance field F# program into my GitHub, so I've got it safe somewhere. I hope you don't mind. I have credited you as it's your code, not my code. Okay, so we got that. So let's have a look what else we can do. Okay. Starting to run out of time. Doing projects. Go over to look at cards again. That's description. Buttons and stuff. We don't particularly want buttons. what happens actually, just out of interest, what happens when we go all responsive on it? Like it does react nicely, that's good. Okay. Got description, and then we've got, was it called extra content, was it? What else did we bring back? We brought back the URL. And here what we can do is have URL. We can wrap that in an anchor tag. Oops. We'll probably need some more stuff in there, won't we? So we want, no, where was it? In my footer, we had target blank and the rel bits and pieces. Well, I'll grab those. Let's see if that worked. Yeah, it does. It gives us a nice clickable link. Nice. I think that's probably, what's the time? It's just gone 10 o'clock, so I've been going for 2.5 hours now. Been a bit kind of up and down as a stream, but we actually got there. I was really scared we were going to get actually scuppered right at the start where we couldn't get the GraphQL connectivity working, but managed to sort that out with the help of Postman. So there's always a good thing to make sure that your token's working. The difficulty was, of course, not showing secrets on screen, but managed to get around that. Found that it was the issue that we had was in our Gatsby config. We needed to set up this this require .env requirement here, so that it will go and look at the correct .env file. I think it may well have worked if I had it in a had the variable in a .env file rather than a .env.development. I think that's what that's basically doing. It's saying use the correct file for the development or the production environment, depending what node_env is set to, and that's a built-in. We've got that, and we've actually got a basic GraphQL query working. It's reasonably complicated, ordered, and we've got a nice. I think this is a bit clearer than the way I try to start it, even though it does mean the way I was trying to do it is so we didn't have to have all of this preamble. I was trying to get it so we had GitHub viewer repositories edges was kind of up in there. I think we could probably still do that. Should we try that? Let's try it. Because all we're doing is basically doing a bit of deconstruction, isn't it, really? So I'm just going to give it a go. We need to then actually split that up, don't we? So that would be GitHub : and then we want : edges, and then we've got one, and we've got two more closing ones. We'll give it a go. I can always revert it. Yep, so that still works. And what that means really, we've got a bit. That's what I was trying to get to the first time. It means we've got a bit less kind of clutter down here that we can refer to edges. So we can tidy this up a bit. A bit better. Make sure we are compiling okay. But we are. Yeah, I like that better. And we've got a lot of work to do on the actual layout and making it look decent. But we've got some cards. We've got links. Description. What we want now is some. Got to put some stars on there, a number of forks and things like that. So let's see if we can get that. The content. And then we're going to want. Get one more piece of data in there. Div. In that div we'll put stars. And then we'll put in there, what is it? So it's going to be node dot stargazers dot its count. There we go. Stars, and then we'll have number of forks. Don't know what that's. Oh, we'll see what that's started. And then we'll have forks, and that is simply node.fork count. We need to tidy it up a bit, don't we? But pretty good. I know what we can do. We can try out some semantic or Fomantic UI. We can say put a span around that. Like that. Another span there. And maybe we can give this a class name. Right. This a class name. Left. See what that does. Nothing. That's a shame, isn't it? That's kind of, I feel a little bit let down by the UI there. I would have hoped that might have worked. Try putting UI in there so it knows it's a Semantic UI. No. Oh well. That's a bit of a shame. But I'll have to look at that and see what it does. Maybe we can sort that out. Oh, what is it? Not, is it that? Really not. Let's see if we can do this. Yeah, we can. Okay, well we'll sort that. We'll make that look neat. I want that kind of forks to be over the opposite side of the card, I think. But we've got something which looks reasonable. That I think that with that we should probably finish, because it was a pretty traumatic stream again. You can see that I'm at my comfort zone, but we've learnt something. We've managed to get our footer sorted out. What we can do with that actually is, just before we do anything, is to get rid of the SAS module. We don't need that anymore, which is good. And we've got a nice, relatively complicated GraphQL query that's working. Still working. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to commit this to my repo shortly. I've got to actually update because it's going to be pushed to Netlify and built automatically on Netlify when I push to my repo. I've got to update my environment variables on Netlify with the new environment variable I set with the new personal access token. So I don't want to do that just yet, but if you do want to see the progress, then it's https://codebasealpha.dev, and you'll see this is the previous version, obviously. So that's there. What we'll do is we'll find someone to raid. I think do that. So next time we'll continue. We'll look at tidying up those cards and start to look at how we're going to do blogs. Look at a blog page and have it dynamically create blog entries.
Who wouldn't want to be in an infinite orgy? Me,
okay,
if they all look like Odo.
Let's have a look. Who can we raid? Or Scoot, perhaps.
So how would it normally work, right? If we don't.
Yeah, we'll go and raid Source Scoot, I think. So thank you so much for sticking with me. It's been an interesting stream. Thank you, CMC boy. That's good to see you here. If you'd like to follow the stream, just hit the follow button. It'd be greatly appreciated. Otherwise, I'm probably going to be seeing you again. It will be next Monday, I think. I think that's the problem. I don't think I'm going to be able to make Wednesday for a while. So let's go and raid Source Scoot. So thank you everyone for joining me, and I will see you again in a week's time, where we'll do a bit more GraphQL, a bit more Gatsby, and hopefully we'll have a bit more luck now we've got some things working. So take care everyone, and I'll see you then.